go. All right, so we have Ryan here with Universal Title. Universal Titles, whether you're in the Baltimore office, Montgomery County, one of the other offices, we've got Universal Title people in each of these offices. And I've actually worked with Universal Title from long before I was with Keller Williams. And had many transactions with them, and they always do such a great job. And Ryan's going to be talking to us today about some things that you ought to know.
Yeah, I basically pulled some references from recent closings that I've done, and I was like, these are certain things that you don't necessarily until you run into these issues and or not necessarily issues, but things like that if you're unfamiliar, until you like are in it, you may not realize it. And I think that if we just get it as a more of a public knowledge thing, and if we really serve you guys as you kind of like approach these like your buyers and your sellers, right? I always say this, and here's like another blanket approach to a lot of what we do, right? I always find when buying or selling a home, it's not somebody like something that's done individually, right? There's an entire team behind a lot of it, whether it's agents, whether it's lenders, whether it's your title team, whether it's a notary public, like everyone needs to be rowing in the same direction. And that's what I always try to encourage. So that's kind of going to be a theme as I continue through this. And feel free if you guys have questions as I speak, ask me, okay? And that's what I'm here for. So the first thing I wanted to point out. So say you have a young homeowner and they're approaching buying their first home. It's my favorite thing to do. I love first time home buyers. There's nothing like being in the closing room and seeing like the energy and excitement with just a little bit of nervousness right
I
there
was gonna
mixed
say
in.
nerves too.
Yeah. Just and it's a nice homogeneous combination of those two things. And partly what we want to do is, A, when we're in the room, we want to make you guys look good. We want your clients to be confident about what they're doing. A lot of times they're making the biggest purchase of their lives, right? And so we want to be empathetic to that, right? We want to put ourselves in their shoes and go, like, how might they be feeling about this? And I always find it's us and the agents working together in unison to basically bring that together. So one thing I wanted to point out in Maryland, first time home buyers, right? There are advantages that you can be taking advantage of, and we're always going to recommend to your clients, right? So there is a first time home buyers credit, which basically what it does is it gives them, they become exempt from the state transfer tax, right? It's the first and only time they will do it. There's a lot of misconceptions out there that you can wait 3 years and all this kind of stuff. As far as I know, first time home buyer in the state of Maryland, you get it one time. It has to be a principal residence, right? You, along with that, you will attest to an owner occupancy for 7 of the next 12 months. But depending on the sale price of the property, that can be a significant amount of money. If closing costs are tight, it's something you really, really want to take advantage of. Now, most agents, like they are familiar with it in some capacity, but I wanted to tell you guys today, okay, so it's one time if it's one individual, but what if we have two? The one thing you want to consider is both, if both people are going to be on title, right? So on your deed, like literally vested in the property, they both have to be first time home buyers. I cannot tell you the amount of times it is very uncomfortable when you're at the table when someone basically realizes that one person is a first time home buyer and the other isn't. What happens then is they basically won't let you record. And what's going to happen is that tax money that basically they were going to be exempt from is now on the table. So your buyer now owes X amount of dollars. So if anything in that capacity, we can make sure of that beforehand. So I'm just saying, it's very uncomfortable, and you basically have to ask for it at the table, and it's not great. So I would say just remember first time home buyers if there are two individuals going on. So that's always an important one. I had another situation recently I wanted to share with water. Okay, so a lot of what we do in title, and we try not to pull back the curtain too much, but the idea is that we're trying to make sure everything is clean to transfer title from one person to another, right? Because that's the true transaction that's happening. So here's what you guys really need to know. You guys, the obvious one is taxes, right? And I mean any kind of tax, right? I love Baltimore City to death. I'm a huge Baltimore advocate. I lived there for many, many years. But I call Baltimore City the biggest HOA I've ever seen because because nothing can be owed against a property to transfer, and they are very much known for environmental citations, and I mean as simple as the grass being too high. And so understanding that when we go to record, if there's a $50 penalty because the grass got too high in, say, an investment property that you're working with the client, they need that paid. Knowing that, so what becomes is taxes. I think that's the obvious one, but I also wanted to bring up water. So your title team usually takes care of a lot of water stuff for you. You're going to see it on the Alta. We're going to transfer water for you, so from the seller to the buyer. Unlike BG, by the way, BG, that's on your buyers and sellers. But what's important about water is that water may be a tax by any other name. Okay, it is a lien runs with the product. So it may have someone's name on the account. But basically, the sum has to be satisfied to be able to transfer the property. And that's why you're going to see your title teams taking a lot of time and escrowing money to make sure all of that can be satisfied. So we may hold money back at closing. So make sure we can pay that bill. So when your client asks, what is this water escrow thing? Essentially, what that and we'll typically also collect for whatever water, right? And we're going to satisfy and then also holding an escrow. What is that truly all about? Well, it'd be great if we could just pull a water bill same day. It was dated, your settlement date, and everything was great. And we go, oh, okay, this is how much water is owed today. We all know that's not a thing. It's made it much easier. They bill monthly now, so it's a little easier. But
Your voice,
a lot of our counties guys.
did you hear me
Oh, is
really?
it? Okay, hold on for one
Yeah, you're.
second.
I'm not sure why, but we keep
Lose maybe the internet connection. Okay.
maybe I'm guessing.
Yeah, let me try one more time. Make sure we
Okay.
can buffer this. Okay. Let me know if it gets any better. Better? Okay.
We'll find out.
Yeah, let me jump. I'm gonna jump in and out, and then we'll see. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. It seems to have resolved itself. I'm gonna
Mhm.
jump out of this, and I'll be right back.
Okay. So while he's going back, what he's talking about is when you go to settlement, right? The prior owner has been using the water, but they have not received their final water bill yet, right? The water bills are sent after you use it. It's not sent every single day. You can't really tell how much the water is. So what will happen is a lot of the time there's a water escrow. So what would happen? The seller who had been using the water this whole time owes some money, but we don't know how much yet. So what the title company will do is they'll hold some amount of money in escrow. It might be $100, it might be a couple $100, whatever it is. They'll hold that money in escrow, wait until the water bill comes, and then pay that water bill. And now we know exactly what the seller owes, what the buyer owes, so everybody's paying to the day of settlement. I just was talking about what you're talking. I was Ryan for a few minutes, that's all.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. Yeah, guys, unfortunately, I don't know what's going on below my feet. I literally felt the ground rumble as soon as it started getting shaky. So hopefully I'm still with you guys. Is it like it better now?
Yeah, it sounds good.
Okay, good. Yeah, so again, it's basically I just want everyone to be aware with a water bill, like you want to be careful. I had a particular situation where an agent asked if we could escrow for water because there was a leak at a property and they didn't want to declare closing. And we advised against it for the sure fact that once you sign that paperwork, it's the buyer's responsibility, right? So if they sign up and take on that water bill that day of settlement and that leak doesn't get fixed, say it far exceeds that escrow that we may hold, that's their responsibility. And you just don't want to walk your client into that type of situation. So in that particular circumstance, we actually waited a good week on it to make sure the city fixed that water main, so we could take care of it. But it's just a unique situation that I think that we don't think about water all that much. It's just something on the Alta, but it can have an impact on our transactions. Okay, so here's my number three, and I actually think it might be the most important. Um, if you guys are wondering, so I'm just curious, what do you think is the number one thing that delays closing?
Um,
Shout.
Funds.
I lived in Baltimore City and I had ground rent. Does that delay closing?
Okay.
That was a thing.
Ground rent is it's not necessarily the number one thing. Here's what I would say with ground rent. Again, this is why it's a team approach to a lot of this stuff, right? If you're working with a title company who's really familiar with ground rent, they usually know how to work around it. Whether you're redeeming at settlement, whether you're escrowing for it because you can't find who holds, the actual ground rent, who's the holder. Um, I have a particular one right now. I just did a settlement because the ground rent holder had passed away, and we have no idea who it has it now. So like typically ground rent is a very unique thing. To like it's a lot of times when you work with people, they don't even know what it is because it's such an insulary thing to our area. I think there's 3 or 4 states that have it. So that's basically it. If you're talking to somebody in Florida, they're like, "What is this?" But that's a unique one. No, the one I would point out, guys, is typically like when there's a loan during like a transaction, that's number one, right? And I have this basic philosophy, right? In a transaction, there's so many hands that touch. Talking lenders, I'm talking buyers and sellers, I'm talking agents, I'm talking brokers, I'm talking your loan officer, your closer, loan assistants, your title team. Good point, like Michelle. I would say like anyone from the city, say we're trying to get a lien certificate to close a property and we need it now and we need to satisfy some violation or something. So many hands can get on a transaction. But I always find lenders are number one. And I would recommend um if you ever have a chance, like if a loan officer is giving a talk or something like that, go. Why? Because if you understand where they're coming from and how a loan is actually underwritten, how they process, why they ask the questions that they do. It's very important. And I think once you understand where they're coming from, it helps it so much to make things smooth with your clients. And ultimately, like I said at the beginning, a lot of what we do to make you guys look good. That's what we want to do, right? We want repeat customers because they are your customers. We're all a business of one a lot of times when we're agents. Um, and I just find if you have the opportunity to develop a relationship with loan officers, or even maybe, a broker, if you're working with a broker who actually will find another lender for you. But those types of relationships and people you can trust is a huge deal.
Mhm.
Um, and I just think that again, when you have so many hands on a transaction, those
Yeah.
are the ones that those relationships are so important. Go ahead, Kirsten.
I was going to say, we had an agent who had just recently had a settlement, and his lender was chosen by his client. It was not one of our preferred partners. His client had a lender. They spoke a different language, and so they wanted a lender with that same language, and that was a piece of it. But the lender was in California. We ran into troubles because there was such a time delay, so he couldn't talk to them in the morning. So that was a piece of it. They were unresponsive. They didn't do everything on time. Like it was a terrible transaction the whole way through because of that lender. And then day before settlement, we weren't even sure if we were closing, and he spent 3 hours at closing because of the lender. Huge difference. And then let me just add, the place where you can meet our partner lenders is here, right here on Fridays. Like all of our lenders come and talk to us. That's a terrific option, terrific way to meet them. And then I would schedule some with them. I totally agree, Ryan. Exactly what you're saying. Like get a good lender and stick with them.
And I would say too, and again, we as a title team, like we develop relationships with lenders because we're there with them. Like again, when you have that many hands on something, so even if something say comes up, like okay, you guys put so much effort forth, right? The agents went to get us to the settlement like table, right? And even if something comes up there, it's invaluable to have a great closer. So basically the closer on the loan who can make final adjustments with you if you guys do notice something is out, right? Um, and like I always love to, if I can have, especially with a first time home buyer, again, my favorite kind of transactions, a lot of times the loan officers will come to closing. It's fantastic because they can speak to a lot of the terms of the loan and make your buyers comfortable. And ultimately, again, we want them to be confident what they're doing. Probably the largest transaction of their lives, and it is intimidating. So, to that end, the second delay to closings is on us. Title issues. So I don't know if you guys know, like, and if you had, like, and I'm not going to bore you with all the logistics of title, but the idea is that when we open a contract, the first thing we're going to do is look into the title of a property. And what does that actually mean? So we literally will research typically 60 years into the history of this property and how it's changed hands. Maybe there's been an HOA added, maybe all this kind of stuff. All of it's public record. There are other things we do dig for that you have to get into, but ultimately, we're trying to find things that may not allow us to transfer the property from, say, the seller to your buyer, or vice versa if you're working with the seller. Um, I always like there's people that we work with and transaction coordinators. I always think it's such a great idea. This is something they've got into the habit of. And if you're working with them in any capacity or a buyer's agent, if the seller has it, ask for the owner's title policy up front. Because most transactions do close with title insurance, right? Um, and if you can get ahead of that and have that on hand, it can alleviate a lot of issues when it comes to title, right? We do everything we can to close transactions. Like we will go above and beyond and try. And most of it we can overcome. And within a reasonable time frame and everyone again rowing in the same direction, we can overcome a tremendous amount. Like ground rent is an extraordinary example, again, unique to our area. And if you guys want to do a ground rent class, we're going to need 30 minutes and more so. But why that is. But those types of things we all try to get ahead of. Um, and I just think, like, again, if you ask for the owner title policy up front, it helps us a tremendous amount. Okay. Number five, again, first-time homebuyers. Again, I love working with first-time homebuyers. I just want to speak about the homestead tax credit for a very short amount of time and what it actually is, right? So you'll hear a lot of title people, a lot of loan officers and agents talk about the homestead tax credit, right? And what it actually does. I think it's immensely valuable, especially in Baltimore City. It's trying to protect against large increases in the tax assessment for a property. Now that sounds like very legalese in a way, and the idea is that like if you go on SDAT, which is just a public record of properties, there will be an assessment, a tax assessment for like the value of a property. And I hope you guys will explore that because there's a lot of valuable information there. But we look at it and see, okay, let me give you an example in Baltimore City. Say it's an investment property. Say it was originally bought by an investor for $50,000. Say your client is now buying it for $275,000, right? That's a swing, quite a bit. Okay. So that's multiple times over of doubling the actual sale, like the assessment of the property, right? What's Baltimore City going to do? They're going to look and say, hey, we're going to reassess this property on transfer because obviously it's worth more than $50,000 and we can collect that tax revenue, right? Where does the homestead tax credit come in? Well, the idea it was developed to basically cap how high they can raise that assessment. The state, it's set at a threshold of 10%. So basically, it butts up against that. So it can only go up 10% per year, right? So you literally can do the math on it of like, even if they tried to raise it, it would hit that threshold, and that's all your client's going to owe. Now, with city and county, it's jurisdictional. I believe there's actually recent legislation in the city. I believe they were trying to raise it. It was at 4%, went to 6. I think we settled it at 5. But I just think that if you have clients who are going to occupy properties as their primary residence, one of the most important things you can share with them, and again, if it's just, there's other like things that go into it too that make sure you qualify, but those are the biggest ones that you want to share that information with them. And it just makes sense. You can do it in the county too, guys, and you can do it. You don't just necessarily just to protect against these large jumps. Anyone can file for it and see if they get it. I live in Baltimore County. I registered almost immediately and it was approved. And, you know, it's fairly easy to do now. It's online. But I just think it's so a valuable thing to your clients, and it makes you protecting like their interest in the property and their money, which ultimately is important. My last and final one, and then I'm happy to answer any questions you guys might have. Okay, I actually polled the room, and there's been some recent things, and it happens from time to time each year. So, has anyone ever worked with an estate before? So, estates are these unique things, right? And essentially, you're usually working with your personal representative, is what you are, or an attorney. Just the confusion. I got a call, and it was a great call, and I was glad they did ask because they asked, "Hey, who do I put on the contract?" It's a wonderful question because the first mistake that we made is like they'll put the actual homeowner on there as if they're selling the property and not the estate. And so if you do that, the contract is not filled out correctly, and then they're signing on behalf of a person it doesn't look they've been appointed to sign for. So typically, if is an estate, the house, if someone has passed away, and basically now that the estate has been created, the estate is now the owner of the property. And so that would be your seller line right there. Boop. It's an important distinction because it saves you on the paperwork as you go through to make sure everything, again, our focus, and it's a theme now, right? We focus on making sure we can transfer the property from one person to another. And that's one we've been seeing more recently. And we just want to make sure, like when you're filling out all that information, and it's a lot, by the way, that it's being filled out correctly so we don't have to go back and make those types of corrections later. Any questions to any of this?
Yeah, I had a question on the homestead tax credit
Yep.
that the buyer fills it out. When do they fill it out? Once they get
Ooh,
to
that's a great one.
or
Okay, Michelle, so that's a great question. A lot of times they'll try to fill it out like a day after settlement. Not gonna work. Okay. Because they're gonna go and the state will let them fill out all the paperwork and they'll get an instant rejection. It'll say, you're not the owner of that house. So Maryland is a unique state in, I'll use Virginia as an example. So when you buy and sell a property in Virginia, we record the same day, right? So like everything transfers, boop, that's it. Maryland, not so much, guys. It's kind of like this. I'm not going to say honor system the way we do it, but we basically say, here's what happens. I'll pull back the curtain a little bit for your title team. You close on a Thursday, right? So everyone signs the paperwork, the loan's good, everything's good, gets submitted to the post-closing department of that title team, either Friday or maybe early Monday. They record that Monday or Tuesday. Now we get to wait. And it's usually jurisdictional. Some counties are very quick. They'll do it in, a week or two. Some will do 3 or 4. Baltimore City, again, my friends. It could be if you have a lot of like say grants on your property, it could be 6 to 8 weeks. So that's when you're actually going to be reflected on record that your client now owns this property, right? So speaking to the homestead tax credit, then if it's not reflected on record, they're going to basically say they don't own the property. So you can't really do it until it's reflected on record. You can try, they'll probably reject you. Here's another thing, guys, that happens a lot. There's not a lot of conversation between what we call land records and then taxes and assessments, right? So your property may get recorded and your client may get very upset that you told them that you were on record and it's now their property. And then they go on Estat, that website I mentioned, and it says somebody else's name. It's not necessarily a clerical error. It's just going to take them so much longer to catch up. So it's not that your client doesn't own the home. It's just like literally the processing of the clerical work hasn't gone through the system all the way yet. So again, the homestead tax credit, you want to wait till you're on record. That's when you really want to apply. Now, and as far as I've been told too, what the nice part about the homestead tax credit, a lot of times it can work in the arrears. So like even if you sign up for it 4 or 5 months after, it should be working retroactively, which is good. Any other questions? Now we're going to speak to something Michelle said too, if there aren't any other questions, real quick with the ground rent thing, only because I just dealt with one literally this morning. And I'm explaining to a client why we're holding $400 or $360 from her for ground rent. She was very understanding. So ground rent is a super unique thing, and we see a lot in Baltimore City and sometimes in Baltimore County. But what does it mean? That literally the ground below the house was leased to someone, right? And that someone owns that ground below it, right? And you usually pay a nominal fee. It's usually paid semi-annually. Um, it goes back, guys, to the 1800s. Like, whether I agree with it, that it should even be allowed is a whole different conversation. It's just something we have to deal with. But that's like literally, usually there'll be something on record. You'll see a lot of them from the 60s, that basically someone got the vesting of the land below your property. The good news is some people doesn't sound good, right? That doesn't like I don't own the ground below my house. Okay, well, usually there is something you can do about it. Work with your title team, or even if you have an attorney or somebody you like to work with, because most ground rent is what we call redeemable, right? Either you can do it through closing, you can do it after the fact, right? Basically, what you do is you'll pay a certain amount based off of what the ground rent owed is. Usually some like deed preparation and stuff like that. But you literally, so it'll change your house from being what we call like an assessment deed, right, into like a fee simple. And so basically you own it outright. And it definitely can be done. And so it's always an option to your clients if they really, really don't like the sound of having, a leasehold property. Here's another thing too. Always consider this. A lot of times, ground rent can be unregistered. We say it all the time. Um, they've made it much easier to redeem it through the state. And in that regards, like literally, there's a probationary period. It's usually 90 days until they'll actually like process it. But that's another thing you can consider too. If you say your client is interested in purchasing a property that's in leasehold, but it's not actually registered, like on SDAT, there's a good chance you can redeem through the state. And we can always help with that too. So again, if your like client is really concerned about not having that leasehold property, they want it fee simple. Okay. Any questions?
Sir Lashta, you put something in the chat, but I wasn't sure what you meant. Can you ask your question?
Yeah, so you said the lenders, we meet them every Friday. Is it in all the
This
locations?
meeting. No, it's this meeting. So this meeting that we have on Fridays, this Friday Partner Spotlight. Today it's
Okay.
Ryan with Universal Title. Um, I forget what next week is a home inspector, but quite often it's a lender here. So if you keep showing up at this particular Zoom meeting that we do every
Oh,
Friday,
okay.
you'll meet
Okay, it's
some
not
lenders. Yeah.
okay, it's not in person, it's on a Zoom. Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
Uh-huh. Yep.
Okay, great, thank you.
Sure. All right. If there's no further questions, we are ending on time today, which is a first. I usually keep this little half-hour buffer because you never know what's going to happen. Anyway, keep in touch with Ryan. Like if you guys need stuff, like Universal Title is great. If you're at the Montgomery County office, there's different reps there, but it's a one company. I've had many settlements where like one of us is signing, this one party signing at one office with Universal Title, somebody else is signing at a different Universal Title office. Totally, totally works. Um, and yeah, reach out if you have any further questions, and we'll do this every Friday. And for those of you hanging out with me at 12 o'clock, I'll see you at 12 for the Momentum Mastermind that we will do over and over. Oh, a couple people asking for your contact info. Ryan, you want
Yeah, I'm
to?
going to send them. And here's something to consider too. So I just put my email there.
Yep.
And Kirsten can speak to this too. If you guys have any interest in, it may have been mentioned in other previous Zooms, but a Prism or anything like that that can help you
Oh,
guys do net sheets and stuff, I can help you guys get signed up. Again, it's free.
yeah.
It's
You
just
guys
something.
want to do that. If you have not done that yet, you want to learn about Prism. You can do net sheets in it, but some other really cool stuff too about like farming and some
Mhm.
marketing things. There's all kinds of stuff in there. Actually, Ryan, sometime let's do a Prism demo.
I think that's going to be the next one. I think that'll be a good one, especially with buyers like net proceeds or cash to close, right? I think that's
Yeah.
important too. Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
awesome. All right, we'll get that on the calendar. All right. Thanks, Ryan, and thanks everybody.
Appreciate you guys. Have a great one, okay?
Thank
Bye.
you.